The Senate subway, an essential part of Capitol Hill since the early 20th century, operates primarily out of public eye. And while millions visit the Capitol yearly, only some know about the quiet underground trains that shuttle lawmakers to and from their offices. With exclusive access granted only to senators, their staff, and select officials, it remains one of Washington's marvels, a symbol of efficiency and privilege that comes with power. Still, since the subway isn't accessible to the public, few know about the hidden system that keeps the US government going. But today, we'll uncover its secrets. So stay tuned as we discover America's Senate subway. I'm your host, Ryan Socash, and you're watching It's History. Before discussing the subway, let's step back to a time when the country's capital was just an idea. DC's story starts in the late 18th century when the recently independent US sought a permanent location for its government. There was intense discussion among political leaders on whether the capital should be located in the north or the south. A compromise was eventually reached in the Residence Act of 1790, which stipulated that the capital would be situated between Maryland and Virginia, between the north and south, along the Potomac River. The new capital was designed by French engineer Pierre-Charles L'Enfant, with much of the initial planning overseen by President George Washington. L'Enfant's idea for Washington, D.C. was ambitious, emphasizing long avenues and public squares, with plans drawing inspiration from his home country, France. The goal of the capital was to serve not only as the administrative heart of the country, but also as a symbol of the nation's democratic ideas. Wide boulevards and public buildings were designed to be both functional and beautiful. However, L'Enfant's ambitious vision took time to come to fruition. Washington, D.C. remained under development for a significant time, and the city only grew after his death. Despite the slow start, Washington, D.C. began growing into its role as the nation's capital. Infrastructure improved, and the city expanded. In 1800, the federal government officially moved to the district, with the Capitol building becoming the epicenter of political activity. The Capitol would experience multiple phases of construction and expansion in the next century to meet these increasing needs for government. Despite DC's growth, however, it was almost entirely destroyed in 1814 during the War of 1812. Due to this, the city stayed small for a long time and had some of its territory taken back by Virginia. However, DC eventually experienced a revitalization during the Civil War and began rapid growth. Naturally, as the city developed, transportation became a pressing issue. From the start, early members of Congress and government employees faced daily challenges moving between various government buildings spread across the wide city. The expansion of the Capitol building and the construction of new government offices only increased these distances that the politicians had to traverse. The city's layout, while beautiful on paper, was only sometimes conducive to efficient travel despite its grid-like design. So, throughout the 19th century, various modes of transportation were introduced to help alleviate these difficulties. For example, horse-drawn carriages and streetcars became popular means of getting around, but they could have been better. Congressmen and senators frequently had to deal with slow-moving traffic and unpredictable weather. Washington, D.C. was known for its humid summers, freezing winters, and frequent downpours, making outdoor travel uncomfortable and nearly impossible. For politicians who worked long hours in the Capitol, they needed to move around quickly and efficiently between offices and chambers, and this became increasingly evident. In fact, it was getting worse. As the building expanded, the distance between key locations such as the Senate and the House chambers, the official lawmakers' offices, and various committee rooms grew. By the early 20th century, Washington, D.C. was a growing metropolis with more modern amenities. However, even with the advent of the automobile, navigating the city remained cumbersome for those working on Capitol Hill. The streets around the Capitol were congested, and the time spent moving between buildings affected the efficiency of the legislative process. As the Senate expanded, these logistical difficulties reached a tipping point in the early 1900s. Senators and staff members constantly moved between different parts of the city, and more often than not, they were under tight deadlines. This was the moment that the inefficiencies of the existing transportation options became apparent, leading to the first ideas of the Senate subway. The Senate needed a more streamlined, reliable, and waterproof mode of transportation that could keep pace with the demands of an increasingly complex government. And so, the seeds for a bold and somewhat unusual idea were planted. And so it was, a transportation system that would operate out of sight, underground, and exclusively serve the US government was on the horizon. The first serious step towards creating a unique transportation system for the Senate was taken in 1909, during a time of significant growth. The Senate had just completed construction of the Russell Senate Office building just north of the Capitol. This new building provided office space for senators, but also created a logistical problem. They now had to make their way from their offices to the chambers quickly, particularly when important votes were taking place. Recognizing the need for a more efficient way to shuttle them between the Capitol and their offices, Congress authorized the construction of an underground transportation system. In 1909, a simple, open-air electric tram was installed to ferry senators between the Russell Building and the Capitol. This rudimentary system consisted of small, open cars that ran on tracks between the two buildings. While far from luxurious, it represented a significant step forwards in terms of efficiency and convenience for the senators. The early Senate subway was not without its challenges. The open design of the tram cars left passengers exposed to the elements, particularly in the winter when cold winds would sweep through the tunnels. Nonetheless, the system proved popular with senators, and its convenience ensured longevity. It also began to symbolize a certain level of exclusivity, as it was available only to members of the Senate and their staff. The next major upgrade to the Senate subway came in 1912, when a more advanced electric rail system was installed to replace the original tram. This new system featured enclosed cars, which offered greater comfort and protection from the weather. The sleek design of the new cars made the subway more visually appealing, and the system's increased efficiency was well received by those who used it regularly. And with that, by the mid-20th century, the Senate subway system had become an integral part of daily life for the senators. Its continued popularity and importance led to further expansion. In 1958, the Capitol underwent a major renovation, including the construction of a second subway line. This new line connected the Capitol with the Dirksen Senate Office building, built to accommodate the growing number of senators and their staff. The Dirksen line used a more modern, automated train system, which did not require a conductor. The new cars were sleek, enclosed, and operated on a continuous loop, providing near-constant transportation between the Capitol and the Dirksen building. The expansion of the Senate subway system continued into the 1980s, with the addition of a third line connecting the Capitol to the Hart Senate Office building, which opened in 1982. This line featured fully automated cars, similar to those on the Dirksen line, but with further improvements in speed and comfort. This system now spanned 3 separate subway lines, each linking the Capitol with one of the Senate's primary buildings. And it needs to be said that throughout its history, the Senate subway has remained a symbol of efficiency and exclusivity, a unique feature of Capitol Hill that sets it apart from other government complexes worldwide. The system is typically inaccessible to the general public, which adds to its air of mystery and intrigue. What's more, despite occasional upgrades and renovation, much of the original infrastructure remains intact, making the subway a fascinating blend of history and modern convenience. Over the years, however, the Senate subway has seen its share of complications and technical issues. There have been breakdowns, delays, and even occasional power outages. Though these problems have been rare, and the system has primarily operated smoothly for over a century, with really only 2 major incidences. The first major incident took place on July the 12th, 1947, when Senator John W. Bricker was shot at as he was entering the subway. The perpetrator of the crime was a former Capitol Hill police officer named William Lewis Kaiser. Kaiser claimed that he was trying to refresh Bricker's memory after Kaiser lost a substantial amount of money in real estate. It was later concluded that Kaiser purposely missed his shot or used blanks. The second major incident happened on October the 7th, 2007, when a car failed to stop. This crash caused a collision and delays, with the operator being taken off to the hospital for his injuries. The construction and continued expansion of the Senate subway reflects not only the growing needs of the U.S. government, but also the unique challenges of operating within the Capitol complex. Since its inception, the Senate subway system has played a vital role in the daily workings of Capitol Hill. What began as a practical solution to shuttle senators to and from their offices and chambers quickly became a fixture of Senate life. Tourists visiting Washington, D.C. often marvel at the idea of an underground train system that they cannot see, ride, or access. Well, the subway system is primarily intended for senators, their staff, and official guests. The general public can be granted access, although it's been rare since 2001. As you might imagine, this is due to the growing security concerns that have mounted ever since September 11th. As the subway security has adapted, fewer individuals have been allowed to ride it. In fact, individuals in the media who were once afforded access also reported losing the privilege, though the system has hosted notable guests over the years. Visiting dignitaries, foreign leaders, and even presidents have used the subway when visiting the Capitol. This system provides a discreet and efficient way to move high-profile people around without drawing the media or public attention. In this sense, the subway has served practical purposes and facilitated the Capitol's security and operational needs. Now, over the years, the Senate subway has seen periodic upgrades and renovations to keep pace with modern technology and safety standards. For instance, the cars on the Hart and Dirksen line were also fully automated. Their tunnels have been reinforced to meet new safety standards, and regulatory maintenance ensures the system operates smoothly. Though the subway hasn't added any new lines, however, the original Russell Line cars have gone through several iterations, changing at least 4 times. In contrast, the other 2 lines have been changed only once. Though the Senate subway system remains largely out of public view, it has a subtle yet notable cultural impact and has bridged over into pop culture on numerous occasions. Notable appearances include House of Cards, the Netflix series centered around political intrigue in Washington, D.C. In addition to showcasing many Capitol locations, the Senate subway was implemented in certain scenes. Then you have the West Wing. Though not explicitly shown, the subway was implemented or referenced in some episodes, a detail that added a sense of authenticity to the show. The rarity of its appearance stems from the restricted access. Ultimately, the Senate subway stands as a quiet but essential piece of American political infrastructure, an unsung element of the legislative process that continues to serve its purpose while capturing the curiosity of many. And we'll leave it there for today, but if you'd like to learn another Capitol Hill secret, then click right here to watch our special episode about Abraham Lincoln's last meal. You can also support the channel by clicking subscribe, and as always, I'm Ryan Socash, signing off. Also, that Eats History video that I just promoted, well, it has a cringy moment or two, so watch it at your own risk.